All right, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to package your feature film. Packaging a feature film is compiling the components of your business plan for the film, your mood board with desired shooting style and art direction, talent and location references, and the credentials of the filmmaking team into a presentation to share with financiers, production services company, and the talent agents of your ideal cast. Now, I've created dozens of packages for feature films I've written, and 2 in the past year that are currently in development. Guero, which shoots in Texas, and Mescalero, which shoots in Oaxaca, Mexico. Mescalero is in development with UTA's independent film department, with offers going out to the first wave of actors imminently. Guero is currently with a financing production company considering whether or not to finance the film, which can take months to get a pass or a green light. Fingers crossed. Now, in order for you to end this video with the ability to create a presentation worthy of circulating to your target audience, I'm going to break the package down by necessary components, guide you through how I pull visual references using ShotDeck, and speak to the world building of the presentation so that the film feels like its own unique thing through each page. So let's go a little deeper here. Let's start with where you need to be in order to participate in this exercise and take on the responsibility of packaging your feature film. 1, you've written your screenplay, ideally on draft 3 or 4. 2, you received critical feedback and notes from trusted industry folk. 3, you've implemented or ignored notes from trusted industry folk. 4, you've partnered with producers that can A, break down the film, B, identify number of shooting days, C, write a budget, and D, pitch talent agencies on behalf of you and the film. Now, if you haven't reached this stage, don't abandon this video. I often use this exercise to help me better understand the story that I'm trying to tell. I don't have many screenplay tools for writing scripts. However, packaging the film is absolutely something you can use to jumpstart or refine your writing process. So before we attempt any art direction or vibe creation, we want to get all the information onto the page. Let's open a Google Doc and begin with the first thing a viewer will see, the title. Now, a good film title tells a little bit about the story. The best example of this is a little forgotten Daniel Craig film from 2011, Cowboys and Aliens. With that title, we immediately understand that the film will tell a story that involves 2 things, cowboys and aliens. Easy. The title of my film attempts to create the same understanding, Mescalero. Although Mescalero isn't quite as ubiquitous as cowboy and alien culture, Mescalero is easily inferred as an association with mezcal, and therefore the audience can safely assume that the film will tell a story about someone who makes mezcal, which leads us to the logline. We need a strong central idea to concisely convey to the reader of this presentation, and eventually the film audience, the conflict and key elements of the plot. One sentence that doesn't explain as much as it creates interest. This is the logline for Mescalero. An American, desperate to become a mescalero in 1990s Oaxaca, is hired by the competition to assassinate his stubborn agave queen mother-in-law and assume ownership of the family's mezcal business. Let's break it down. An American, our central character, desperate, a revealing adjective, to become a mescalero shows the character's desires. In 1990s Oaxaca, the setting and atmosphere is hired by the competition to assassinate his stubborn agave queen mother-in-law, the plot, and assume ownership of the family's mezcal business, where the conflict arises. Perhaps some bias, nonetheless, this is a compelling logline and one that piques interest to turn the page. And that's our primary objective, to have each page connect with the viewer so much that they have to turn the page to better understand where this story is and where the film is going. We want the readers of this presentation to be insatiable for being involved in the making of the film. A strong, one-of-one logline will certainly begin the presentation on the right foot. Let's go into the synopsis. Here we're going to get into more detail about the characters, the setting, and the conflict of the plot. Let's bring back the Jon Favreau directed classic, Cowboys and Aliens. Here's the official film synopsis. Bearing a mysterious metal shackle on his wrist, an amnesiac gunslinger, James Bond, Daniel Craig, wanders into a frontier town called Absolution. He quickly finds that strangers are unwelcome and no one does anything without the approval of Colonel Dollarhide, Harrison Ford. But when Absolution faces a threat from beyond Earth, the stranger finds that he's its only hope for salvation. He unites townspeople, outlaws, and Apache warriors against the alien forces in an epic battle for survival. Pretty cool. Not necessarily my type of film, but Daniel Craig with Harrison Ford and Jon Favreau, hot off the Iron Man success. Come on, let's print money. So what do we have here? We have the mysterious hero, the amnesiac gunslinger, with a metal shackle on his wrist. We have the supposed villain, Colonel Dollarhide, which is a great name. We have the setting, the town called Absolution, and we have some details about the setting and the minor characters that live there. Strangers are unwelcome, and no one does anything without approval. We also have the primary conflict, war for survival against alien forces, in which the hero unites everyone, including the supposed villain, who, likely has a change of heart and is no longer the villain. I don't know. I've yet to see the film, but I think that's safe to assume given the synopsis from Wikipedia. This film was absolutely stacked, though. Ryan Howard, Brian Glazer, I once told him in Aspen that we'd work together. Steven Spielberg, wow. Despite my lack of interest in the film, the synopsis is strong because it provides conflict of the hero, provides an adversary to the hero and the ways in which they stand in the way of the hero's destiny. It touches on the setting and the disposition of minor characters, and it clearly communicates the plot and the story the film is telling. Here's the official synopsis of Mescalero. After fleeing the United States for a mysterious crime, Book Davis seeks a revered position as a Oaxacan mescalero on his mother-in-law's agave farm. When the one-year anniversary of his employment comes without being granted the coveted title, Book befriends the illustrious competition, a disenchanted legacy mescalero with ambitions outside of the spirit. Together they devise a plan to assassinate Book's mother-in-law, the agave queen of Oaxaca, to make Book the new king and bring mezcal to the rest of the world. So let's do a hypothetical here. Opening night, cowboys and aliens, or mescalero? Exactly. The details section. This is where you can express the story a bit more and pontificate if you like, without having to cover the beginning, middle, and end of your film. I use this section of the presentation to get into the setup of the story and then tease the primary challenge or conflict that must be resolved in order to reach a satisfying, hopefully surprising, ending to the film. So let's look at the details section for Mescalero. I'm going to call out the ways in which this provides valuable and necessary information to an actor or a producer or a film financier. At its core, Mescalero is about the relationship that Book, one of the main characters, creates with Carlos, the disenchanted legacy mescalero, because of his frustrations with the practices and traditions of his mother-in-law's agave farm, which won't award him the title of mescalero after working there for a year. So in this details section, I'm attempting to piece together the dynamics and sensibilities of the main players with the nuances of this unique story to once again have my target audience continue reading and become insatiable to eventually read the script, which would be the next step. Mezcal. The Mescalero deck has several slides that are specific to the film, one of which being a dedicated section to mezcal. A mescalero is someone that makes mezcal, and in this section we speak to the critical role mezcal plays to the characters of the film and the themes of the story. Para todo mal mezcal, para todo bien también, which means for everything bad mezcal, for everything good the same. In Oaxaca, mezcal is as ubiquitous as water. And when this film comes to life, we'll see how mezcal is in almost every scene, part of all the decisions made, and that Mexican adage at the heart of the characters and the plot. The other Mescalero-specific slide touches on the relationship between our two mezcal families, Madre Mezcal and Micha Mezcal. In this story, Micha Mezcal is being acquired by an American liquor conglomerate. However, Micha Mezcal is provided by Madre Mezcal, Rosa Santis, and her traditionist ideologies. After Micha agrees to the American buyout, Rosa puts an end to their supply agreement, and therefore makes it impossible for Micha to be acquired and expand globally. This is the primary plot conflict of the story, which creates all of the character conflicts and eventually leads to a budding relationship between Carlos and Book, the main characters. It's critical to dedicate slides to the various nuances of your film, to differentiate the package from the thousands of others circulating at any given time, and to speak to your understanding of your project. Films are intricate and require conflict like these to be compelling from a plot and character perspective. The setting. One of the most important factors to the creative direction of your film is the setting. The setting of a film directly impacts the camera language, the lighting style, the plot, and the dynamics between characters in that time and place. For a film like Mescalero and a setting like Oaxaca, I attempt to give life to Oaxaca from the page to the reader. Oaxaca could be less visited for the audience of this presentation, so it's imperative that I speak to the colors, the diversity of the culture, and the people that make this place so cinematic. Mescalero takes place in the Palenques, where mezcal is made, in the central district of Oaxaca City, the San Jose del Pacifico Mountains, which separate the city from the coast, and the Oaxacan coast. All interesting and compelling locations for the film to unfold. And thus I speak to their unique qualities in this presentation to justify the action and creative decisions made in the film. Which brings me to the film style. This is the section in your presentation where if you're the director or the vision behind the project, you speak to how you will make the film, visually and thematically. This is how you will position your camera, how you will direct your talent, the decisions that will dictate the tone of your film, and how you will turn the written word into a thematic and filmic experience for the audience. Mescalero is a light, dark comedy, a bit coy and satirical, reminiscent of Raising Arizona by the Coens or Robert Altman's The Player or Gus Van Sant's To Die For. Given the natural beauty of the setting, the film will attempt to make every frame a painting, as I accomplished on my last project in Mexico, which is available in the description, which will make Oaxaca its own character in the film. I'll encourage some in the moment to play with the actors, not attempting to take ourselves too seriously, yet still meticulous in execution. Like all my projects, the camera will be 90% locked down, that is on a tripod, and close-ups will only be used to communicate something important to the audience. That's my film style for Mescalero. Comps. With comps, we'll need two versions of this presentation. One for talent, in which we don't include the comps. Two for financiers and studios and producers, in which we do include the comps. Our comps are the already produced and released films that our film resembles. First in the style of the narrative, then in the budget, the marketing, and the box office, the revenue. These are films that made more money than they were produced for. We want to compare our film to contemporary films only, ones made in the last 5 years. The industry changes rapidly, and thus comparing our project to films made 10 years ago won't articulate what's possible with our project. As I mentioned before, where you've reached this stage where this presentation is necessary, you want to have an estimate to what the film will be made for, so that the comps here can serve as worthy references for your project. The latest budget for Mescalero is $5 million. I'm going to skip the films we used as comps for our project, but the final presentation is in the description for you to review. The characters. Okay, so if you wrote the script, you likely did so with actors in mind for the characters in your film. However, if you're like me, no talent knows who you are, then you have to be malleable here. It's a challenging pitch to have an established actor put their trust into a writer-director with no experience in feature filmmaking. For the purpose of this presentation, we're going to break down the slide for one main character and one supporting character. We'll start with Carlos Micha. This is a role I wrote for Antonio Banderas. Whether or not he plays it will come down to finances, schedules, and the interest in the project. Nonetheless, I wrote it in hopes I can present it to him as a collaboration and a journey we'd take together. Carlos is suave, charming, a latent homosexual, and the disenchanted legacy mescalero at the heart of our story. His conflict is created through his relationship to Rosa, the widow of his deceased brother, and Pablo Rondon, the atypical cartel member that has the control of his mezcal company, as it's being acquired by this American liquor conglomerate. Because of the conflict with Rosa and Pablo, Carlos creates a relationship with Book Davis, our other main player, because he needs something from him to assassinate Rosa. Carlos is quite nuanced. From an early age, his parents positioned him and his twin brother as the face of their mezcal brand, Micha, which is ironic that a child is the representation of a liquor brand. His twin, Chuy, loved mezcal and grew with the company. Carlos had ambitions outside of the spirit. After Chuy leaves the family business to marry Rosa and begins making mezcal with her, Carlos is forced into the operator position of Micha and thrown into business with the Rondons, an interior Mexican cartel family. The decision Carlos makes throughout the film impact the story and the other characters in the film, which make him a central player. Before any actor sees this presentation, it will be first screened by their team. So not only must I play to the sensibilities of the artist, I must also speak to the reasons this part will have a positive impact on the career of the actor. Mescalero is an independently produced and financed film, so while we want to create the strongest financial offer to our main characters, their decision is likely going to hinge more on the material, and this film is a vehicle for whoever plays Carlos Micha. So make this section compelling to the ideal talent, personify the character's conflict, and it's important to the story. Speak to the opportunities the individual will to create an incredibly unique and complex character, a memorable one, and make it known that you envision this particular character played by this particular person. Now for a supporting character, Camila Santis. Camila is just off the cusp of being a main character. She has the impact of a main character with far fewer scenes. We keep the details of the supporting character a bit more concise. Nonetheless, all the same rules apply. This is a direct pitch to the actor we have in mind for this role. And for Camila Santis, I wrote that part for the immaculate Monica Barboa. She is style, and she is grace. Camila is Book's baby mama, Carlos's niece, and Rosa's daughter. She's in touch with the traditions of Madre Mezcal and also quite aware of the trajectory that Micha is experiencing with this acquisition. Thus, she is supportive of Book, but not at the sacrifice of her immediate family and their legacy. Camila has a strong character arc and plays a pivotal role in the decisions Book makes, as evidenced by her carrying their child. Team. Let's keep this brief, not because it isn't important, because it's likely the less impressive of the slides, being that we have no feature film experience. This is the filmmaking team with any applicable credentials: director, writer, producers, and any aces up the sleeve. Here's how you want to structure this and some direction for the copy. The writer-director, accomplishments in the creative arts, business, if applicable, the reason for the desire to make this film. Why this director? The producer, more experience in the film industry and thus more opportunities to speak to film projects accomplished. Still, keep it brief and concise. These are our final slides, the business plan of the film. This is an independent film, so we won't complicate this final slide. We will produce the film, cut the film, and prep it for these target festivals, based on our schedule for production and completion. I include the special marks of the festivals, and boom, we've wrapped the information of the presentation. And now let's go back and make it visually compelling. Designing the title. I'm partial to things that are kind on the eye. All of us are, just not all of us are conscious of it. It's crucial for me to make this presentation pop with visual identity design decisions that bring the film to life. That begins with the title. I've imagined this film in my head, and because I'm a visual designer as much as I am a filmmaker, I've imagined how the materials of the film will look. The title, as the first thing the reader of this presentation sees, is critical for setting the tone for the information that follows. We want something interior Mexican, we want something Oaxacan, and we want to use available resources, something open source so that we're not spending weeks on developing a word mark. Once the film is green lit, then we'll spend copious amounts of time on the visual identity. Until then, agility and efficiency is the name of this game. For the Mescalero word mark, we did the following. First, we gathered references that spoke to us, felt like they embody the essence of Oaxaca and Mexican culture. Then we began searching for typefaces that we felt aligned with key elements in the film. This was organic, by hand, authentic, Mexican, and fun. We ultimately ended up with this, which we believe is a word mark that encapsulates the spirit of Oaxacan culture and also feels clean and connected to the world that the characters live in, like something they would see on a sign walking through the city in the film. To create further cohesion in the visual identity of this presentation, we use some subtle elements directly and indirectly through the pages of the deck. Mescalero is a descriptive region-specific title, and that region is flush with the agave plant, ubiquitous to Oaxaca. Let's work that into the design of the presentation. For this, we wanted to incorporate something innately fully aligned with the film. When we were designing these slides, we wanted something that wasn't just visually striking, but that also carried meaning, something that subtly spoke to the heart of our film on every page. So that's why we chose this illustrated version of an agave plant. Agave isn't just a beautiful, resilient plant, it's symbolic. It thrives in tough conditions, adapting and enduring, much like our story's characters. And it looks cool on these slides. Reference images. When speaking to his cast and crew about his 2024 film, The Bike Riders, Jeff Nichols said, "I've already made this film in my head, so we always have that to fall back on," or something of the sort. I feel similarly about Mescalero, and I use this to my advantage to source reference images from ShotDeck for the presentation. There are many brilliant ways to use ShotDeck, searching by color, cinematographer, by shot style, or angle. My film knowledge is quite vast, so I identify 4 to 5 keywords and then go from memory for the rest of the sourcing. My keywords for Mescalero were agave, interior Mexico, desert, farm, drifter, family, gangster, cartel. Now, because I've made this film in my head and I have this vast knowledge, almost photographic memory of specific shots from films, I know of 5 to 6 films I wanted to pull images from. Those films were Sorcerer, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, From Dusk Till Dawn, Wild at Heart, Sin Nombre, The Three Burials of Michaelis Estrada, a brilliant Tommy Lee Jones directed effort. So we've sourced our images, now we place them throughout the presentation to match what's being said on the page. For the title image, we use something that encapsulates Book and his story, this image of Quentin Tarantino and From Dusk Till Dawn, and we follow this form and function throughout. The logline needs to be legible, so we use this setting-like image behind the copy. We follow this with another book-like image, Nicolas Cage and David Lynch's Wild at Heart, and this very clear image I have of Rosa and Book driving in her car, and this setting descriptive 2-shot. So we use this image here. Mescal and the setting. This image is from a documentary called The Flights of the Butterflies, which I was able to gather by searching Mexico in ShotDeck. And this image is from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Later in the presentation, I fit in a Chinatown image and one from 5 Easy Pieces for my guy Jack. Now in closing, a few weeks passed since my last upload. I saved this for the end, not to use it as an excuse. I found that rather disingenuous when it's at the beginning. This practice and creative output is all about commitment, as is anything you want to accomplish in life. I'm currently committed to making a feature film. I use this space, this medium, to create consistently and share what I've learned with those that can benefit from it. The greatest thing anyone can learn from me is that commitment is the most important factor to accomplishing your definite purpose in life. When you're in a position like me, it's more efficient to have one large fire that you stoke and add logs to regularly than it is to keep several fires burning. And desire is like a fire. Let it burn big and bright. Small desires make small fires. Big desires make big fires. and big fires keep a lot of people warm. Thank you.